participates? Participation in government and politics can take on many forms. The most common form of participation by Americans is in the election process through voting. In addition to voting, Americans also run for office, volunteer for or donate to social organizations, political parties, and to candidates, participate in campaigns, and join interest groups as well as volunteer in their own communities. While voting is the most common type of political participation in America, the proportion of adults that vote in any particular election is actually quite small. There is also quite a bit of variation with respect to turnout depending on which offices are being elected, whether the election is national or only includes state and local candidates, and if the election is a primary or general election. To vote, most citizens need to register within a certain time period, and depending on the state, may also have to present a strict form of photo ID, such as a state-issued identification card. While most citizens do have the necessary form of ID, for a significant number of Americans, such as the elderly and some disabled voters, this ID may be difficult to obtain because of the far distances needed to travel or a lack of all necessary documents. Some states, like Oregon, Colorado, and Washington, have sought to ease the registration process and voting through the introduction of online registration, mail-in ballots, and early voting. These states were among the states with the highest turnout in the 2016 presidential election. Political parties and other nonprofit organizations are also involved in overcoming barriers to and encourage voting through various Get Out the Vote efforts, such as voter registration drives. In analyzing voter turnout, it is helpful to distinguish between voters of certain ages, income levels, race, gender, and educational levels. Studies show that with few exceptions, as a citizen's age, education, or income level increases, so does their probability of voting. For example, in the 2016 presidential election, about 20% more of those with at least some college attendance voted, as opposed to those with only a high school diploma. Gender is another demographic characteristic that shapes voting. In the 2016 election, 63.3% of the voting eligible women voted, compared to a 59.3% of voting eligible men. This gender gap, where more women than men turn out to vote, has been steadily increasing since the 1960s. Whether the race is a close one or an easy victory for one side also impacts turnout. Competitive elections in which the outcome is not certain tend to increase voter turnout. For example, during previous presidential elections, turnout was higher in swing or battleground states, where the parties or candidates are evenly matched. And finally, the type of election impacts a citizen's decision to vote. Many voters choose only to vote during presidential elections and stay away from the polls for non-presidential elections or midterm elections, which are known to have significantly lower voter turnout rates.